Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter down welcome you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. And today we're going to be looking at the Rangers, not the Kitchener Rangers, although I'm prone to do the Kitchener Rangers, although I have already kind of did a revisement to my top 10 Kitchener Ranger moments, of course, adding 2026 and the Memorial Cup. We won the fucking tournament. Anyway, yeah, I know, but come on. I don't earn money for these videos anyway, so I can say the F as early as I want. Nevertheless, today we're going to be looking at the top 10 New York Rangers moments. The top 10 New York Rangers players of all time. I was thinking about doing a Blue Shirt Underground show, top 10 BSU moments, but the fact is that I don't think they would be liking me doing this. But anyway, we're talking about the top 10 New York Ranger moments. New York Ranger players. Cutter, quit fucking it up. Anyway, so here we go. Number 10 is Andy Bathgate. In the old days, of the 1950s and 60s, Andy Bathgate was a consummate professional. He was the Hart Trophy winner, aka the MVP, in 1959, one of the early stars of the franchise. And let's not forget the guy who purposely backhanded that shot into Jacques Plante's mush November 1st, 1959, because Plante apparently hooked him. But Bathgate didn't know he was going to start a tradition with goalie masks and a winning streak by Jacques Plante. But Andy Bathgate was an icon. It was shocking. The Rangers were doing poorly. And in 1964, they traded him to the Toronto Maple Leafs in a massive 7-player deal, if I think. Well, I know that Rod Sealing came calling. I know it's Bathgate and Don McKinney for Sealing. Bob Nevin, the guy who scored the overtime goal in 1971 to sink the Leafs in the playoffs, and many others. But yeah, Bathgate was a great player and all that, and great towards the Ukrainian community in Winnipeg. Number 9 is Vic Hadfield, part of the gangline goal of game moment. Um, so yeah, he was a pretty good player and all that. The first Ranger to score 50 goals in a season. Well, my notes, yeah, that's right, he was. I was about to say those notes are wrong, but no, he was. He did have 51. He had 52 goals in one season, and that was broken by somebody who's on this list. But anyway, Vic Hadfield was a good player. To me, he's nothing but a piece of shite because of what he did in Game 2 of the 1971 playoff series between the Leafs and the Red Wings. Sorry, the Leafs and the Rangers. What am I thinking? In Game 2 at Madison Square Garden, Leafs were about to go tie the series at 1, and then Vic Hadfield, for some effed up reason, decided to throw Bernie Parent's mask up into the crowds. Like, what the fuck, man? Why would you do something like that? Well, needless to say that, Perrant refused to play, and Jacques Plante had to come in for the rest of the game. Fortunately, though, for the Rangers won that series, but Vic Hadfield being kind of a prick. That was kind of a prick move. Number 8 is Brad Park. He would have been probably higher in this list if he played all his career with the Rangers, but he wasn't. So Brad Park was this great defenseman for the Rangers, a 5-time All-Star. I think he was a 3-time runner-up for the Norris Trophy for Best Defenseman behind this guy named Bobby Orr. Perhaps you've heard of him. Anyway, Brad Park was a good player and all that. And then in 1975, in one of the most disastrous trades in New York Ranger history, he, alongside Joe Sanusi and Sean Rattel, were traded to the Bruins for Phil Esposito. Who is that defenseman? Phil Esposito. Carol Fanday and all that. It was like unbelievable. Brad Park would continue his career well with Ontario in the Lunchpail game in Boston in the late 70s. Rangers just couldn't make the playoffs. Couldn't make the finals for Shed, whereas Park could. Brad Park was an icon for Boston as a player and all that. It was just shocking that the Rangers let him go in a massive trade in 1975. All that. I know Phil Esposito is not on this list because Phil Esposito, as a player, was not really that great, and as a GM, phooey, he was nothing. Number 7 is Adam Graves. Adam Graves was known for his grit and scoring touch. I know a lot of NHL fans will watch this and will remember his time with Edmonton and the Rangers, and to a lesser extent, the Sharks. But did you know Adam started his career as a Detroit Red Wing? I bet you didn't know that. He was actually traded to Edmonton in that famous trade that saw Peter Klima and Joe Murphy head to Edmonton for malcontent Jimmy Carson, who hated Northern Alberta. Anyway, the joke was on Carson as Graves, Klima, and Murphy were Stanley Cup champs in 1990. And then Graves was awarded to the Rangers as compensation, I think, or was it the other way? Yeah, Graves was meant given to the Rangers as compensation over the Troy Mallette situation with Edmonton. But Adam Graves proved why he New York Ranger. When he Ranger, his scoring touch, he scored 54 goals in one season, which was the record from 94 to 2006. Yeah, he was good. Good old number 9. Andy Babcock's number. And let's not forget about Adam Graves and his human touch, too, because his parents would have a lot of adopted children and all that. Foster children. Graves would do that system, too. Number 6 is one of the best goalies of all time. It's Mike Richter. Mike Richter is this guy from Pennsylvania who was picked by the Rangers in the draft. He came up auspiciously in 1989 in the playoffs against Pittsburgh, Game 4. This guy from the University of Wisconsin who was part of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team in Calgary. And anyway, Richter did all that. People remember Richter and his famous Lady of Liberty mask, and it was one of the best masks of all time in New York. However, Richter didn't always wear that. Richter would wear a cage helmet a la John Van Beesbroek, who's not on this list. But yeah, Mike Richter was a good goalie. He was even platooned with John Van Beesbroek for the first 78 games of the 80-game 1991 season. Can you believe it? Richter, unfortunately, was victimized by a 50-foot slap shot by Ron Francis in Game 4 of the second round in 1992 against the Penguins that lifted Penguins' momentum to win the Stanley Cup. However, Richter came through with it, wore the new mask, 40-plus wins in 94, was an icon. He was basically the man between the pipes, making sure the Rangers got to the Stanley Cup Finals. And in that Stanley Cup Finals, yes, they won the Stanley Cup, but Richter made that famous save Pavel Bure at Game 4 of the Finals, in which, if it wasn't for Richter's save, I think the Rangers would not have gone 3 games to 1. Yeah, they lost games 5 and 6, but they won games 7, all that matters. One of the best Rangers games played and wins. The only problem is Richter's career was basically ruined by concussions, and that could have been changing. Number 5 is Sean Rattel. Sean Rattel is a prolific center, consistent scorer and playmaker. He was great. Drillman Sean, as they call him. But yeah, Sean Rattel was a great player and all that in the 60s and 70s for the Rangers, and was genuinely, unfortunately, Rattel was in that trade to Boston in 1979. Rattel would do okay as a Bruin. He would have some scoring parts, but he wasn't the same guy as he was with the Blue Shirts of that park. From Boston, not too much, although he was in Dunchar's system, and that was pretty good. Number 4 is King Henrik Lundqvist, winning the goaltender of the year, aka the Vezina, was the best of the Rangers for over a decade. Hendrick actually was picked in the 7th round of the 2000 NHL draft. He actually came to draft ceremonies with his twin brother Joel Lundqvist, who was drafted 3rd round by the Stars. Surprising how Dallas never decided to pick Hendrik Lundqvist. I know they had Marty Turco, but still. Yeah, Hendrick got his name picked 7th round. The European scout of the Rangers said he was the best goalie available. He would wait till 2006 to make his presence known as a Ranger, slowly getting rid of the Kevin Week era. Hendrick played his heart out and all that in the 2010s. He was all over the media. He was all over the ice as the player, and his head and shoulders stuff. Anyway, Lundqvist did a lot of stuff too, including that twirling save in games of the 2014 conference finals against those Habitants, where without a stick, he managed to deflect the shot over the net. And of course, King Hendrick was always known for not playing well in Montreal, but he produced in Montreal in that playoff series. Lundqvist and Coach losing the finals in 2014 to the Kings, despite having 3 games in which they had 2 goal or more leads, and then botched it all. Fluke. Bud Hendrick was great and all that. He was starting to slow down in a bit. Shosharkin came in. Lundqvist would have actually traded to Washington, but before he could play a year with them, he had a herp thing and retired. Making sure Henry Lundqvist played for one team and one team only, the New York Rangers. And his 469 wins is the most by a goalie with just one franchise. Martin Brodeur, I know, had over 600, but the guy played 13, had 13 games with the freaking St. Louis Blues. So Fatso forgot to shake Hendrick's hand and all that. Number 3 is Raj Gilbert, the franchise's all-time leading goal scorer, number 7, and who the Rangers basically pissed off that fan base with a 7-second moment of silence for Raj Gilbert. I know we were number 7, but 7 seconds for this guy? Are you fucking nuts, Rangers? So anyway, yeah, Raj Gilbert was a great player for the Rangers and all that. His career actually didn't start out that well. While playing for Guelph, who were the New York Rangers, what they call sponsorship team in 1961, he actually tripped on an ice cream container lid and broke his back. He had to have spinal surgery, and in the late 60s, that was not really much to be desired. But yeah, Raj Gilbert could have easily had his career really derailed. But nope, he managed to get through the spinal stenosis, or whatever you want to call it. And he played his damn heart out. So yeah, Gilbert did his job. He was a great player, a gentlemanly player. I know you could also say, what about Walkachek? I know he's a former Kitchener Ranger, but he was more for a checking guy. And after all, this is not top 10 New York Rangers of the 1970s. This is New York Rangers of all time. But yeah, Raj Gilbert was good. Number 2 is Brian Leetch, one of the greatest defensemen in NHL history. Well, Paul Coffey would say no, Bobby Orr would say no, Ray Bork would say no, but fuck that. Ranger fans probably would say. Anyway, he was a 2-time Norris Trophy winner for Defenseman of the Year, Conn Smythe Trophy winner for Playoff MVP in 1994, and the first American to be captain of a Stanley Cup winning team. Did you not know that? You better know that. Anyway, Brian Leetch was an icon. Drafted from Texas to play hockey. It's like Texas and hockey. But remember, this is between the WHA era and the Dallas Stars era. Anyway, Brian Leetch was there for the Rangers. He was a good, solid player. I think he was close to winning the Calder, wasn't he? For Rookie of the Year. Anyway, Brian Leetch had that 100-point campaign in 1992, which he did pretty good at. And everyone thought that his star would go up. Unfortunately, Leetch would have a couple major injuries, including hurting himself while stepping off of a cab in 1993. But he came back for the 93-94 season and played his damn heart out. And with the Conn Smythe Trophy, as I said. Brian Leetch was great and all that, sticking with the Rangers in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then being traded on his birthday to the Leafs. I mean, Brian Leetch was great, but I didn't think any Leaf fan would have wanted Brian Leetch. He was supposed to be a one-team player, but he wasn't. And number 1 is the Moose, Mark Messier, because of his leadership and getting the cup to the Rangers in 1994. Mark Messier was a great player in his own right. Everyone knows that. Messier started his career in the WHA and then went into Edmonton and then played for Edmonton alongside Gretzky. Gretzky got traded, and then for a few years, Messier, that was his team. He won the 90 Stanley Cup. He would have troubles, contract negotiations with Edmonton, and then poof, he was traded to the New York Rangers in a massive trade that saw Bernie Nichols, Louis DeBrusque, and Kitchener's Stephen Reichs be sent over to Edmonton. Bernie Nichols would be okay before he got swapped to Chicago. DeBrusque was a fan favorite, and Stephen Reichs was a flop. And this is from a Kitchener Ranger fan. Anyway, Messier was named captain. He started with the team early. He was a leadership campaign. He won the Hart Trophy for MVP. He got the Rangers to first place in the NHL, something that you rarely could tell. Yeah, they lost to the Penguins in the first round. And sorry, second round 92. And also Messier kind of had the inkling, the hatred of Roger Nielsen, and basically commandeered Nielsen's exit out of the team. And then came Mike Keenan, who was tough as nails as always. Messier managed to play Keenan's hand and basically put Keenan at bay. He guaranteed Game 6 of the conference finals against the Devils, which he backed it up with a hat trick, including the Gary Thorne call. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? He said we will win Game 6. He has just scored a hat trick. Yeah, he was iconic and all that. His leadership campaign scoring what is now the cup, no, it's the cupping goal in '94 for the team, getting to do what no Ranger had done in 54 years, raise Lord Stanley's mug, and he did. He would have contract problems that almost ruined his '94-'95 season. He was good, and then in '97, after a long playoff run, he decided to flee for Vancouver, pissing off Vancouver fans because Messier was made captain, which Trevor Linden didn't like. And also, Messier wore number 11 for Vancouver, which was supposed to be retired for Wayne Mackey. So basically, Messier had 3 seasons with the Canucks and basically pissed everyone in the Pacific off and, went back to New York. They buried a toy hatchet, and Messier became the man. He second highest scorer and all that. So yeah, Mark Messier came back to the Rangers, played till 2006. He was still iconic, and he always will be iconic. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.